helped in this area, dealing with Lake County and some of its local lore, as well as some of the local the famous Chicago ghost stories like Bachelor's Grove, Resurrection Mary, and so on. Ursula Bielski, a recognized authority on the Chicago, Illinois region ghost lore, historian, author, and parapsychology enthusiast. She has been writing and speaking about Chicago's supernatural history, folklore, and the paranormal for more than 16 years. Her interest in ghost hunting and local legends began at a young age. She says she grew up in a haunted house on Chicago's north side and received an early education in Chicago history from her father, who was a Chicago police officer. Since that time, she has been involved in various investigations of haunted sites in and around Chicago, including such places as the Country House Restaurant in Clarendon Hills, Chicago's Red Lion Inn Pub, which I got to go and investigate one time, Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, another one, and Oshkosh, Wisconsin Opera House, which we actually just got to go there back in November, if I'm correct.
And you know they had an opera house.
Yes, we do. It's very beautiful, too.
Is it?
We do have pictures on our Yahoo groups and our, actually not on our website, but on Yahoo groups of the Opera House. We didn't find any ghosts or anything like that. It was very calm when we went, and overall, just it's stunning to be in that Opera House. It was very nice. First Opera House actually to investigate as well. She has authored numerous scholarly articles exploring links between history, the paranormal, and including pieces of the International Journal of Parapsychology. She was a past editor of the PA News, the quarterly newsletter of the Parapsychological Association, a past president and board member of the Pi Gamma chapter of Phi Alpha Theta, and the National History Honor Society, and a member of the Society of New England Authors. She graduated from St. Benedictine High School in Chicago. She went to the University of Lisle, where she received a BA in History, and from Northeastern Illinois University, where she earned an MA in American Cultural and Intellectual History. While at Benedictine University, her academic explorations include the spiritualist movement of the 19th century and its transformation into psychical research and parapsychology, and what we're kind of going over. If you guys haven't caught up with that. And the relationship among belief, experience, science, and religion, which technically we'll be getting into very shortly here. In 2004, she founded Chicago Hauntings, a company that gives bus tours and holds special events devoted to exploring Chicago's haunted history. She's actually will be doing a new tour fairly soon. I believe it's free right now. I don't know how often she's going to do it, but it's a free event. If you can find her, if you're on Facebook, go ahead and check it out. I believe her website for her tours is ChicagoHauntedTours.com, I believe. Go ahead and check that out, so you can get on that and take a look at what she has to say, if you haven't heard her already. Some of her books, of course, are Chicago Haunts, which is right over there, and someone else just got that. More Chicago Haunts and Graveyards of Chicago, the people, history, art, and lore of Cook County cemeteries. She actually signed some of my books as well. Now, going through all that, I went through a little bit of the history, kind of going from the idea of early researchers from Rome to some of what the spiritualist movement had to offer. And a lot of that, along with Hans Holzer and what came out with Troy Taylor, so I'm kind of molded what the LCGH research group is all about. Of course, what we're dealing with now is going into the history, we're dealing with the present. And this will discuss a little bit about us and local lore. Before we get into, well, actually, let's kind of go into local lore. Let's start with that. Some of our early influences, authors such as Dale Casimir, Hans Holzer, Ursula Bielski, and Troy Taylor. One of the books that I talked about, Richard S. Broughton's book, Parapsychology, The Controversial Science, was a huge influence with understanding the history and studies of paranormal experiences. Some of the TV influences were MTV's Fear. I don't know if you guys got to see that, but that was a great experience, probably the most. Yeah, it was good. And I felt, if anything, it was the most truest of all paranormal TV programs. They're kind of saying a lot about what's out there right now. We have Scariest Places on Earth, Sightings, which was by far my favorite show, an investigative reporter aspect into researching paranormal. If you get a chance, try to find some of the episodes online and just watch them. Great information. A lot of what they presented at that time kind of helped me gain some of what is going on and help me create my theories of what we are experiencing. Of course, like most, I have my personal experiences, like I explained before. which was the leading push to get involved. Okay, there we go. Like I said, I grew up in Chicago, and eventually we ended up moving up here. First, we lived in Zion, and we moved out there. We lived there for about 2 years, and then ended up moving to Grays Lake. And I was kind of, starting to get interested in the paranormal. I was asking people about stories in Zion, which I've heard of a witch in that area. One of the many things are the tunnels that are underneath Zion. Actually, a lot of cities in northern Illinois or northern County actually have tunnels underneath them. Believe it or not, Antioch is one of them. But the tunnels in Zion, which I ended up finding out was possibly made, who the founder was a religious person, was made to hide his wives. Or his mistresses, I'm sorry. It led from the church in Shiloh Park, if I'm correct, the church in Shiloh Park, to two of his houses. He had like 2 houses, and one of the church that he ended up founding. Of course, that I need to do a little bit more research in that, kind of get more into historical aspects of what that particular story came from, but that's commonly what's understood in that area. Then moving here into Grays Lake, I started to get more into the local lore. Teenager, I was about 14 or so when we moved there, and it was kind of that point where I started taking more into the research into my own hands, going on the internet, and of course asking some of the local people if they know any more stories. And of course, one of the first things that came that was told to me was Cuba Road. I'm sure many of you have heard about it.
Used to pass by there
all the time. A lot of people do.
Used to go to work.
A lot of people do. Actually, we'll get into that. Cuba Road, located in Barrington, Illinois, is home to many claims of paranormal activity. A lot of people will consider this the Thatcher's Grove of Lake County. From the hitchhiking ghost to phantom cars, the famed White Cemetery, and claims of a vanishing house also reside here. There were even claims of a phantom train that ran on the tracks off of Cuba Road. As far as I know, there was only a couple claims on that, but that was brought up into some of the stories that I was told about. This area was also home to mobsters during the height of the prohibition of alcohol. People have reported in the past seeing ghostly mafiosos walking along the road and appearing in back seats of the drivers passing by. When we were there, the gates were open now going to White Cemetery. Well, actually, White Cemetery was one of the places that we first had dealt with on Cuba Road. Really, if anything, that's more kind of the marker of that road. Some of the stories kind of just revolve around it. Been there quite a bit of times. Now it's closed. They really don't let anyone in there. They didn't let anyone in there before. Of course, before I began, I should have told anyone, we do not condone going to these places after hours or trespassing on this property because of basically you can get into trouble. And because the height of paranormal research and ghost hunters in the past 10 years has also led to vandalism and more popularity of these sites. So if you're ever looking into this, please get permission. If not, try to find people who own the property or know about the area to learn a little more. But once again, with White Cemetery, actually, let's go back there. About that area, there's a couple of stories or a couple of experiences that I had. One time we went there, it was a group of 10 of us, and walked through the cemetery. I want to write something, but the cemetery is kind of more like a C shape. You go in and come right out. We went right in and stopped the car and got out and started to take pictures and so on. And one of the first times I ever experienced this, along with another person, was seeing a shadow-like figure kind of run across the path of the cemetery. And really, that was probably the only experience I ever had in that cemetery. After visiting so many times, I felt that it was very calm, and I've never collected anything to present to anyone that would consider it haunted. Never got to see the vanishing house. We never had any of the mafia come into our cars or anything like that. It's really, if anything, just a calm cemetery right now. If any of these stories existed, they're really not much now, unless it's because they are keeping a lock on it, that people are not recording any more stories. But most of the stuff that has been recorded actually happened mostly during the 70s and 80s, to be